So really looking forward to this Travis Mickle. I think it's our fourth, fifth, sixth interview. I don't know, but you know what's got me excited about this one is the community. I've been following the stock and interviewing Travis through the highs and the lows. And right now we're at a very low point in KemPharm's, KMPH's history. And as far as share price is concerned, and a lot of it just doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of people wanting me to ask questions. And I've been digging deep into the history of this company, and probably, hands down, the most interesting aspect, and I think the one shrouded in the most mystery, is GPC takeover of Corium and Corium's strategic partnership with KMPH. Specifically, the fact that Corium also makes and really sells their marketing company CNS drugs, like specialty drugs. I mean, I looked at the website, I looked at their LinkedIn employees. They've gotten so many. Once GPC acquired them, and GPC, by the way, is a subsidiary of Beef Flexion. And when you start climbing the ladder of this corporate maze, you get to this guy named Ernesto Bertarelli. So I'm going to try to get my questions in. I mean, shout out to the KMPH community for putting me onto these things because, you know, I never associated Corium with all these different companies. But when you look under the hood, you see like former Shire executives, former Takeda executives now working at Corium. And Corium, outside of Astaris, Corium only has one other drug that they're working on, Adlarity, which is an Alzheimer's drug. And so you're like, okay, strategic partnership. In a way, Corium's like a competitor because they're in the CNS space, but then they're also collaborating because KMPH is the one who helped Corium get Adlarity to market. So, oh man, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things on. Obviously, the community wants to know, and honestly, I'm just gonna ask Travis. Like, I've done my homework this time, and I hope I can get a lot of my questions off. And I hope that they allow the interview to air in its entirety. And then Chris is my co-host for this one, and he's equipped with some questions as well. So we're looking forward to it. Let me know what you think. Please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Again, I tried to ask everything. If you see something not in here, they probably asked me to take it out. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, comment, share. You excited about this one, Chris?
No.
No. Do you even know what we're doing?
Interviewing KMPH CEO, dude.
That's right. That's right. So I'm actually, I wasn't too excited about this, but the community was excited about it. So the way this happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
You already know I'm a long-term holder of KMPH stock. I think you are too, right?
I have a little bit.
Okay, yeah, me too. It's not a lot. And then this year, you know, we're doing our taxes and all that, and we have that yearly IRA contribution. So I looked into KMPH. I'm like, wow, this thing is low. Let me just buy some. And then I went to StockTwits to see the like why it's so low. Like read on the chatter. There's so many questions they have. So I posted in there. I said, hey, I think we're overdue for a Travis Mickle interview. And I did between January 10th and when I bought more in my IRA, I did not follow this stock at all. So I looked, I'm like, holy crap, this thing went from like 850 or something to 4 something. Now it's pushing the 3s. So it's like, all right, well, let me post on this StockTwits thing and see what people are saying. And people are saying all kinds of, there's a fly in here. People are saying all kinds of stuff like, man, you know, if you do this interview, first of all, they think that I'm getting paid for doing this interviews. And I tell them I'm just a shareholder just like you guys are.
Mm-hmm.
So I just happen to have a YouTube channel. So you got some questions ready to go? You're naturally curious?
No, not particularly, but I do have questions. Thank you.
Hey, Jason, how's it going?
Doing all right. How are you? Thanks again for the opportunity.
Absolutely. We're recording, so if you want to give like the legal spiel right now for those, like, let me just preface it. This is a fireside chat, guys and gals watching. This is not financial advice. This is not even necessarily a formal presentation by KemPharm. There, did I do good, Jason?
Yes, that you did me just well. If you'd like, I could read the safe
Yes,
harbor statement
please. Please, while we wait
I
for
did.
Travis.
I'll have to pull it up on my computer. Bear with me for a second.
How's everything?
Everything is going pretty well. Busy as always. You know how that is, and continuing to watch the markets as you are, and I'm sure everybody else listening to my voice is doing.
Yeah, down 4% today.
Yeah.
Jason, I didn't know you so your investor relations, that actually means like literally taking calls from investors. I mean, I guess
It does.
like being at a
And
small cap, right? You're like, because I got so many emails. People are like, yeah, I talked to Jason. He actually talked to me. That's crazy.
yes. Yeah, I'm happy. That's as one of the aspects of my job. So yeah, I'm
All right.
available if people want to outreach to me. It doesn't mean I'm going to always pick up because I might have something else going on, but they should not take that as anything other than I'm probably busy with something else. If they leave me a message or send me an email, I will do my very best to respond in whatever fashion I can, recognizing, of course, that I might not be able to answer their questions in full due to disclosure regulations and other requirements. But I'm a voice, I'm a real person, and I'm happy to listen to what they have to say. And they may not realize it, but the majority of what I'm asked, I relay back to KemPharm, and we do our very best to answer those questions as much as we can.
Man, that was a great statement. So yeah, Travis is in. So yeah, if you want to go ahead, Jason. By the way, you're gonna get hit up by a bunch of people I know just from StockTwits by basically
That's okay.
inviting them to reach out. But Jason, you guys can see KMPH is not running from anybody. They're not hiding.
Nope.
So as Travis gets his camera set up, Jason, feel free to read the legalese.
Sure, I will do my best. So before we begin, I would like to remind our listeners that remarks made during this interview may contain forward-looking statements that involve risks and uncertainties and are subject to changes at any time, including but not limited to statements about KemPharm's expectations regarding future operating results. Forward-looking statements are made pursuant to the safe harbor provisions of the federal securities laws and represent management's current expectations. Actual results may differ materially. KemPharm disclaims any obligation to update or revise its forward-looking statements except as required by law. More complete information regarding forward-looking statements, risks, and uncertainties can be found in KemPharm's filings with the SEC, which are available on KemPharm's website under the Investor Relations section. So there you go, Dan. I will now turn it over to both you and Travis.
Thank you. And thank you, Jason, for that. Yeah, you wouldn't believe why we need that. Like, that statement's very important for lawyers, not for anyone else watching. So thank you, Jason. Travis, welcome. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me again.
Nice to see you. Glad you still got the beard going. People on StockTwits were speculating, they're betting. That's like side bet on whether you're gonna have a beard still.
Oh, that's hilarious. No, the experiment continues.
All right. So, and thank you, Chris. Chris has got questions. Look, Travis, thank you so much for coming on. I really like doing these things every quarter. And people ask me to disclose, like, hey, Dan, make sure you disclose if you're a shareholder. The answer is yes, although not significant. And number two, disclose if you're getting paid by KemPharm. The answer is no, never have. Okay, never. I'm just a shareholder like most of you guys watching. I just happen to have a YouTube channel. And this is kind of fun because Travis actually answers questions. So Travis, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. We got tons just like last time.
Great.
I'm gonna try to keep it a little different because rather than just asking the questions, I've formulated like a structure. And then Chris has some questions too, in case I miss any. And then maybe at the end, if we still have time, we'll get into questions. So obviously right now it's April 2022. Market valuations across the board low. Biotech's been getting killed.
Killed.
All
Yep,
right.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
now people who just hold KemPharm, they just see it as KMPH is getting killed. And there's this thing going around like, hey, Corium's keeping KMPH in the dark, and then Travis is just, feeding us whatever he feels like feeding us. But I got tons of emails, not just stock twits. I'm talking people who find my email address and reached out to me and said, hey, you know what? Ask this question. The smart ones, I believe, and I don't know where I stand, but maybe I probably tend to side with like these long-term investors. We have this guy from Stock Twits. His name, we can't keep his name, but he says, if you don't know who this is, let me fill in the blanks. This is KemPharm. Travis, for once in his life, is in the driver's seat. The future of KemPharm is wherever he wants to take it. Only Travis and his team really know everything that they have on the workbench. Ernesto doesn't really have a clue. We're going to get into what that is. It probably drives Ernesto nuts that Travis could drive him into a merger, entertain buyout talks, or do whatever he wants. The direction that we will go is up to Travis, no one else. Shorts and slimy traders can beat us black and blue, but when the cash starts rolling in, they'll fade away. So Dr. 01, he really begged me to tell you that, like to read you that statement. I think that's a good way to start the interview because he's been giving you a lot of flack on Stock Twits, and he wanted to let you know that he's in your corner, Travis. What do you think about this guy, Dr. 01?
Well, I mean that's great. I mean that's a lot of positivity. I don't know. StockTwits usually doesn't have that, but I mean I agree with him. We're in the driver's seat, right? The company, the board, management team, scientists. Yeah, we're beholden to Corium, ComAv, GPC, our licensed partners here because they're the commercial party. They're going to be the ones that execute on the commercial plan and ultimately send revenue this way. But we have all the IP, we have all the development team and programs that literally just got another product approved for them with an hilarity patch when we consulted for him. So you're right. I mean, he's right. We have every opportunity. We also have ample resources to do whatever else we want instead of just worrying about them per se, and think about our own acquisition value.
Yeah, I listened to the latest call, the latest investors call just now, right before the video, so it's fresh in my head. And one of the things you said that stuck out to me, I actually wrote it down. You guys are shopping assets, so you're taking advantage of the low valuation that the market's providing, and you're looking for something phase 2 or beyond. You guys have enough cash on hand now where you don't necessarily need to raise cash. And we're going to get into financial stuff as well, although like just more from a conversational and hypothetical than anything actual related to the specifics of KMPH. But because of the low valuation that's out there, that's, that could mean good deals for you guys. But at the same time, KMPH valuations getting low too. Like have companies reached out, like Corium maybe?
Well, I certainly couldn't, tell you any specifics, but you know, uh, obviously, at some point along the way, whether it's post license or in the future, it does make sense, right? They have this revenue that they have to send our way, meaningful milestones, meaningful royalties. That's going to hit their bottom line at some point. So that makes sense. Strategically, it makes sense. We've already partnered with them on a consulting basis. All those things make sense. And our pipeline really does fit, but they're not the only ones it fits with. So, you can imagine other companies liking a revenue generating company with good cash position with a low valuation. But the problem is, we have an artificially low valuation for absolutely no reason. We've had nothing but good news. Corium's making good progress. So they're like, well, why would I sell at this point? They're not going to offer me what this company is worth. But I think there's ways to move everything forward. And when we look outside, it's like, well, there's some real value out there, and relative to us, it may even be more depressed, just because we have capital, we have cash, and so we don't have to, be out there raising money and diluting the company, which drives your stock price down more.
So I just wanted to clarify something you asked him there, Dan. Well,
Yeah.
for myself, you said that things are getting cheaper for you to continue with the research. Is that what you asked, Dan? Something to that effect?
No, they want to buy it. They want to acquire they're looking to shop for asset. They're looking to buy other drugs that they could bring in-house. And the low valuations would make that a good time to buy, but at the same time, shareholders getting upset and worried because, hey, I mean, why is the KMPH market value going down? By the way, Travis, can you hook me up with Ernesto? Like, can we get him on the podcast? Ernesto Bartarelli. He just sold something for 1.7 billion. I'm sure you know about this.
Yeah, I heard about it. Shareholders tend to forward stuff like that. Why isn't this KemPharm? Well,
do you think that's fair? 1.7 billion?
I'm not familiar with the company on the other side. Are you talking about us?
Yeah.
There you go. That'll be our base level. We'll just go up from there.
That's the threshold. 1.7 billion.
Right.
Do you know him, Ernesto? I'm just curious.
No, I've never had a chance to meet him. No, I'm very familiar with the whole team at Granite Point Capital, of course. Corium know very well. So
yeah,
but never had the chance.
All right, at least hook me up with someone from Corium. I've been trying to get, look, I'm on their website now. They're a commercial stage biopharm company, leading development of CNS therapies. Actually, you guys helped them with their Alzheimer's drug, Adlarity. So prior to them working with you guys, they got 2 complete response letters from the FDA. If you don't know what that means rejected, guys. And then you guys came through and they get approved.
Yeah, well, I think that it's actually pretty rare to bat 1,000 in this industry, but we have. Everything we've taken to the FDA has ultimately got approved. And they recognized how well we did with the Astaris submission, just asked for our opinion and help, and then eventually said, okay, we'll pay you guys to help out here. We got a success fee for that was earned last month. We had an announcement there. But it's a unique team here and why would you go out and look for other assets? Well, because maybe those have also had some difficulty. And if the science is sound, there shouldn't be any good reason why, it ultimately can't get approved and have substantial value. And that's our model. Worked in pro drugs for years, but now we realize really drug development and unique opportunities is what we do.
So maybe this is a dumb question, and maybe we can tie this into how the deal with Corium even started, right? And maybe we can look into that a little bit. What is a pro drug? I've been trying to explain it to people, and I just explain it to me like I'm a junior high student or something. What is a pro drug?
Well, it can be a number of different things, but in our case specifically, we take an FDA-approved drug and we actually make a chemical modification to it so that it's a brand new product, brand new molecule, never been invented, seen, dosed in any way before. But once it's administered as a physician would intend, it breaks apart. So you get back the same active ingredient, so it works. But there's some improvement to it. Whether you said, well, I took something I had to take 3 times a day, now it's once a day, abusability, consistency of the dose, maybe drug-drug interactions. There's a list of things you can improve that, sure, you can improve some of those with, say, a reformulation where you pack it in a different gum or gel or sugar. But at the same time, here you get a new molecule with other benefits that you would never get for the formulation.
Is the safety profile generally the same?
It's usually it's either the same or better, right? That if you can make it not so peaky, like Astaris, our product, all the other methylphenidate products have these multiple peaks. One happens early, late, maybe within a few hours of each other. Well, just have one that happens early and then slowly goes down throughout the day. And what we've seen is that height and weight improve versus what the standard would be for other stimulants. And I think that's some of the side effects you'd expect are kind of go away or get diminished greatly.
So
go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to ask, so generally speaking, with a prodrug, you can probably start in phase 2 testing.
You skip a lot. Yeah. So you do more in some respects, right? You want to know that it comes off consistently and how that works with the patient population. You really just focus on, since it's already been approved, you focus on how you have improved it. So when we worked on abuse deterrent opioids, we'd only do the abuse liability studies to show that it's less abusable. Here, like in our ADHD, we just did a single trial, just a single ADHD trial in kids, and they gave us 6 and up on the label. So it does allow you to skip a lot of the steps that others would have to go through. It reduces the risk greatly, but it does tie a lot into you have to show that it's an improvement, or payers will never pay for it. It's just going to get put into a box of useless junk at that point.
We're going to get into the payers because you brought that up in the call. But okay, the reason I asked what's a prodrug, you guys have the ligand activated therapy, Corium. Like, how did this partnership start? Because you're the founder of KemPharm, so you were there in the early days with Corium. Was that pre-GPC, pre-GPC taking over Corium?
Oh, yeah, this is actually a very long history. It goes back to my days at New River Pharmaceuticals working on Vyvanse. So,
okay,
New River actually had a partnership with Shire to develop and get Vyvanse approved. Ultimately, Shire, the day before final approval, acquired New River, and so Vyvanse was the entirety of their product. So, KemPharm was founded on a similar basis, taking prodrugs, improving those. And over the years, there was a few disagreements with Shire, led to some lawsuits and settlements and so forth. But ultimately, I got to know the Shire team very well. So during that course of that, I've met Perry, I've met several other, their commercial team, their business development, senior leadership at Shire. And then as we got closer with our ADHD product, it was an obvious choice to go to them and say, hey, look, we have a replacement strategy for Vyvanse. Well, happened to be at the very same time that Takeda decided to take out Shire. And so all that team, Perry Sternberg and others, left and went on to other opportunities. And we were fortunate enough that they went to Corium, that was backed by Gurnett Point, and that everybody kind of aligned and said, let's do this again, but now, with the Staris and without the overhang there. We were looking at other partnerships, but this was the one that made sense.
Was it like, because it's a who you know business, right? You were like, you know what, I'm a scientist. Like, we already know these guys. We have a track record. We have a history. It's just much easier to go with them again.
Well, I easier, but also, nobody else has been as successful with ADHD products. So this is the team that made Vyvanse a $3+ billion product. It's a great product, but that's not an easy accomplishment in any marketplace, especially one where there's already 20 other treatment options, and most of them were generic or went generic over the course of that time. So we knew that they were the right team, and in particular, their market access leader, John Neely, came from Shire and was able to get their preferred positions. And, he's been just nailing payer access for this product because he knows it's better.
Was the goal always like, hey, let's get Astaris off. Let's use the revenue we can to develop the other SDX. You said that's a pipeline in a molecule, right? What did you say in the call? That's a pipeline in a pill.
In a pill, yeah.
With SDX. So was that always the goal? Like, all right, we know we're gonna get Astaris off. Maybe it's not the most ideal situation, but we are a startup but now you're bigger. Like now you're actually shopping assets, right?
Right.
Wouldn't it? I guess you can't have your cake and eat it too, but you're basically would be looking for another. Like right now, you're looking for another product that has the same potential as the stars, more or less, right?
Or we've seen so much stuff, to be honest, and we're thinking about areas that are adjacent to a product, like KP 1077 for idiopathic hypersomnia. So I think other sleep disorders, or products in neurodegenerative diseases. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and others, because those are similar call points. Those are similar areas, and you can focus a sales effort on high prescribers, or in case of rare diseases, very specific physicians and patients that have this. So it's not 100% our intention to be a commercial company, but we can be, and that I think has more value that we can be, that this has a commercial path, than we're going to go commercialize this and make these each billion-dollar products.
Yeah.
Sometimes fear is a great motivator. Fear of losing out, fear of competition, fear of not getting the next big product.
Well, the way I see it, like Corium, I've been looking at their website, and I mean, they're commercial first, right? Like you guys seem to be science first. And I don't know how Adlarity came to be, but somehow they probably acquired that IP and needed your guys' help to develop it. So this is where all the speculation comes from, that it's like a match made in heaven, really, for Corium and KMPH to have a merger. And I get it, but like you said at the beginning, they're not the only one. There's a lot of companies now that would be looking at KMPH. So I just wanted to get some history and get your thoughts on that, because it seems like you guys complement each other very well, and a lot of the stockholders on StockTwits seem to think the same.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think it's fairly obvious, right? They don't historically have a track record of drug development. The IP that they had around the Adlarity product, this patch for Alzheimer's, was the company that Gurnett Point acquired, but that's not who Corium is now, right? They just happen to have patches, they happen to manufacture them, but they don't necessarily focus on that, right? Because they have an ADHD product, which is their largest focus of the company.
Yeah, I mean, I could vouch for that because I've been doing my homework. Unlike the last interview, I actually did my homework. So on Corium's website, news and media, every single publication, March 28th, March 14th, January 12th, October 29th, I could keep going down. Okay, October 12th, they talk about Adlarity, but all the other ones are all about Astaris.
Yeah.
So they're focused, because the investors, this ties into more questions. Sure. The investors are worried, do you think Corium spread too thin? Why aren't sales greater than they are? Why does Google Trends only show 10 states when you said it's a full nationwide? I don't even know how they're using Google Trends, but they said 10 states show up on Google Trends, but you said it's a nationwide rollout. So are you happy with progress so far? And can you address some of these concerns?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in there, but I'll start with the Adlarity one. There is a distinct differentiation between the two products, right? But where there's a neurologist, there's probably a pediatric psychiatrist. And so, if you have 10 sales calls a week in a certain area, maybe you call on a neurologist here and there. But that product's different, right? That's a Medicare product. That's going to take a while to get through a process. And it is my belief that they're going to get through that, kind of the early humps here with the stars well before, need to focus on that at all. So it's really, to me, is a non-issue about that. I said on the call before, we're very pleased with how they're doing. I mean, I've seen other companies just completely struggle and really fall flat on their face with any sort of launch. The launch officially started last year, but it really didn't kick off until January 1, because they were just trying to get access. If you need to get access through payers, you have to have scripts. And so they were pushing to get access, really. And now, kickoff since the beginning of the year, 7% week over week growth. Start mapping that out for a few years and figure out how big that opportunity is. And then imagine, there'll probably be some upticks there when they get additional big payers. We talked about 2 of the 3 largest. Well, what happens when the third adds them? It's an upside down world to some degree. Scripts aren't driven by doctors; they're driven by payers. And so, if you don't have access, and you can imagine going into a physician's office. Oh, my kid, has ADHD. Well, let's try a star. So you go and the pharmacy says your insurance won't pay for it, and that parent calls up and says, well, they wouldn't pay for it. Well, give me something else. That doctor's never going to write that script again. That was a pain in his ass. He just doesn't want any part of it. He's going to move on, and that's disastrous for these launches. And I think that's one thing that they were focused on. Do not lose advocates, do not lose parents, do not lose patients, do not lose physicians, because those are the ones that will get us through the payer difficulties that happen in that first 12 months.
And so it's Corium's role to kind of work behind the scenes and get the payers on board and all that good stuff, right? To make all this easier.
I mean, ultimately, it will live or die by the payer access.
Right.
How much you can charge, how much discounts you have to give, if you have give a copay card. Ultimately, how much money do we receive is based on how many scripts get written and filled and paid for, and then what that delta is for us.
So you, as far as Corium, can you address the concerns that Corium's somehow keeping you in the dark? I mean, this is like one of the concerns they have, and then you're supposed to have a call with them coming up soon or something that people are trying to read into this.
Yeah, no, I asked Perry before our earnings call there, hey, can we maybe do an update call, a kind of public one where he's gonna do all the speaking and maybe have
public. Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Have him on a call asking questions, maybe going over a few topics.
Because you know him for decades, right? You know this guy for decades, so I'm sure you guys have conversations. But this is like a public call, like to appease the investors and all that.
Well, not necessarily. It does have a purpose for them, right? They can point to that for physicians that are interested to kind of learn more about the product and the launch and how things are going, payer access, as well as parents and anybody else who's willing to listen. I think that's why they see the benefit, because there's a huge KemPharm audience, but there's just in general a huge audience that may be interested, Corium followers as well. So he sees the value in it. So we've agreed to do that. We're going to try to do it this quarter. We'll give a couple weeks notice at least, because it'll take that long to plan. But I have to be cognizant he doesn't work for KemPharm or our shareholders, and so he'll do so when it makes sense for their organization. That we get that question too, and I'm always like a little bit scratching my head, like, where did that come from? Because they tell us everything, and I pass everything along. There are details within that are proprietary, or they would probably not want to know for us to tell who the 2 of the 3 largest are, because that last one may not know if they're it or somebody else is coming up. So there are strategic details that I don't think we'd give if we were launching the product, just because it's not to anybody's, including shareholders' advantage to do so. So yeah. I'm just always like, what are they talking about?
Well, that's a good answer. I mean, if you could hook me up with a Perry interview, that'd be really good. I think a lot of just hit him up on text, say, hey, Dan wants to interview you. He's harmless.
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
Okay. Thank you. Insider buying. All right. Share buybacks. There has been a plan, $50 million share buybacks. But what about insiders buying? Like, another one of the speculations is like a lot of this stuff feeds the rumors, right? On the last interview, I think the price was like $8 a share. Now it's like $4.50. You said something along the lines of, this is a good time to buy. So would now be a good time to buy too? And if so, where are the insider buying? Because people haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, I want to clarify a little bit because I think either I misspoke or didn't really clarify, and it goes hand in hand with the share repurchase program too. There are times in which you legally can and legally can't buy and sell. As an insider, not only do I know information that may never materialize, and people may speculate and it could cause some issues, but there's also things that are materializing that I shouldn't trade on, whether good, bad, or indifferent. So those sort of blackout periods exist, and throughout our history, we've had maybe a few weeks a year in which we could actually execute on a insider purchases or sales. So each time you see me buy, that's when the blackout period's been lifted. It happens every single time.
So more often than not, you're in a blackout period.
Yeah, because of financial reporting requirements until you report. So from the beginning of the quarter until you report. So that was the entirety of the first quarter because we didn't report till the end of the quarter. That's the blackout period. For a few days after that, it's a blackout period. For a few weeks or days before the end of the quarter, there's a blackout period. Once I know what the financial numbers are or anything material, non-public information, then that's a blackout period. So that could be strategic discussions between two companies. Maybe it never comes out. Nothing ever happens. Maybe there's clinical data that we're still reviewing and analyzing that, it may not even be hugely imperative, but if I have it, we just don't trade on it because people may react positively to it. And I got an unfair benefit over the public, and I just can't have that.
Right. Chris, I know, you got questions locked and loaded, and then we'll come back with some more.
You guys are answering a ton of them.
Okay, well, let's go through. Chris has
twists.
got a full clip loaded, ready to go.
Yeah, but like half of them are already used and spent. So
give another half. Casings. There's so many. Honestly, Travis, like whether the stock's high or low, the community is there talking. Like you can't, and this is like a small biotech. This is not like a huge company, and there's a lot of activity, a lot of chatter. Yeah. And I gotta give it to you, like this is not your first rodeo. I think one of the things that gives you credibility and maybe why there's so much chatter is you've done this before with Vyvanse. So can you compare, actually, maybe this is a good question until Chris gets another one locked and loaded in his gun there. Compare Vyvanse when it first launched to Astaris. Like, are we on par with this launch, or are you happy with how they compare?
I don't have the exact numbers for the early days of Vyvanse. I mean, that's way back in 2007.
Yeah, 08. Just gut feel.
Yeah, I think they're on the same track, but the world has changed a little bit, right? The payers were not as problematic then. There were 3 or 4 other big branded products that also did, were able to get very high pricing relative to all the generic products that were out there. And Vyvanse was a huge improvement over those products. Now with us, we already have Vyvanse out there, so there's already a good product. We believe we brought a much better one for methylphenidate, but certainly there'll be some that like Vyvanse more than Astaris. It is the way it works. It just some folks will do better with it because an amphetamine-based product is a little stronger and may have a different effect for those individuals. But I think the trajectory is actually fairly similar. And I do want to, answer one question. Somebody keeps putting out, script numbers. I think those are fairly accurate. We're well over 1,000 scripts a week, and it keeps tracking up about 7% on average, week over week. And that I think is a healthy trend. And that's what they did see, again, by my recollection, in the early days of Vyvanse.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's a few people asking the same question. Actually, a 3-part question. So what was the $600K in revenue for in Q4? Was this for Astaris? And if so, what was the royalty percent of those initial sales?
Some of it was a breakdown. I know there was some part of it that was from an ARC Bio license that Corium ComAv were able to enter into for Astaris in China. And so that was some portion of that. It was a small amount for royalties. Let's just say less than 100,000. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but that's because if you look at script data, I mean, it reached maybe the 500s at the end of the year. And that we were only counting for the third quarter at that point. Then the fourth quarter came, there wasn't as much either. So as I said, I wouldn't even count last year. Sorry. Because it wasn't a full launch. It wasn't intended to be. It was kind of this partial launch to get payer access, and they got it now, and we'll see how the first quarter goes, and the second quarter and third quarter. We especially know that the first half of every script, like the first month is free. Go look at Corium's website on the copay cards, right? That first script's free. That's pretty common, but there's a lot of copay assistance too to get folks that want to try it, not to have issues with payers. And that will diminish as payers accept it.
As far as, so there's concern about the Russell 2000 and all that, and then when that potentially not meeting their requirements to stay on that exchange, that's another concern that I'm seeing a lot on StockTwits. Are you guys planning on, like, how easy is it to get on CNBC? You can't just call them and say, hey, put me on. I mean, I love that you come on our show here, but it's definitely not CNBC. What are you guys trying to do that? Like trying to get the word out, trying to get more institutional investors on board?
Yeah, no, certainly. But our focus was to get, a pipeline that made sense for institutional investors. And I think now we finally have that. We've been executing on that, not unlike an everyday investor. Institutions like to see a catalyst. So we have clinical data, clinical starts, that sort of stuff starting the back half of this year. And so I expect, that now is the right time. And I know we've been looking at getting in several conferences. Our media team, social media team have been gearing up for getting the word out. But, institutions like to get in ahead of a catalyst, want to see that uptick if things go well. And, we're hearing too from a lot of our banks that we work with and analysts we work with, there is just very little to no institutional buying right now. They are waiting for a bottom. They're waiting for things to start to improve in the biotech pharma. And until that happens, people will definitely take our calls. They'll talk to us because we're in a unique position. But at the same time, those positions will be had once this bottom's reached, whenever that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got the rumor out of the way early with Ernesto freeing up 1.7 billion, but he doesn't talk to Travis, so Travis doesn't know. But maybe GPC or somebody does. We can only speculate, and StockTwits will do that better than no other. Now, Travis, what about the team, like Pasco, right? How has his addition been working out so far, and what are some areas that you think he's helping with as far as with KMPH?
Well, as he kind of announced and we discussed in a press release, his goal was to help with those business development efforts. So the efforts to bring in additional assets, as well as to get us in a nice position to actually get institutional investors, right? To go out and position that. He knew that we were resource challenged at the time, so it obviously made sense to have him, come in and help with those. And we do everything as a team. We worked closely together when he was on, just as a board member. He was willing to do, basically the same stuff, and now he can do it every day and focus on it. So it's been a great add. I think, the team here has been executing on exactly what we said. You've not seen any bad news. Everything is just ticking away, every milestone met, every data point hit, and that's what we intend to do, from here on out. And I think he's just a good part to help us message that, and look for things we can do the same thing to, where we can continue to execute with new products.
Are there things back to like partnerships and things like that? So As far as Astaras, everybody knows it's Corium. As far as the other IP, you guys partnered Apodaz. You guys partner with KVK Tech, which nobody talks about. Why is there all this talk about Corium partnership and no talk about KVK Tech? Like, you guys have different partners too. And
Yeah.
I'm asking because this leads to the next question of, are there things you learned with Corium agreement that you'll try to avoid in the next agreement? And specifically maybe with 177 or whichever one you have planned for next.
Well, why don't we talk about Apodaz and the KVK Tech license? Well, it's an opioid. So the only thing you hear about opioids is negative. And, they're a large manufacturer of opioids. They've been a generic manufacturer. They only make generics. They don't brand or sell anything other than to the distributors. So, they're hesitant. We're hesitant. Everybody should be hesitant to, promote an opioid. And I think there's been some good progress there. They've taken a different stance about education and working with compliance to build a message for that product. It's definitely safer than the alternatives when you think about what could be available. At least that's what I believe personally. But at the same time, there is the lawsuits and all these issues, which I think are wrapping up. So here we got a process to go forward. Looks like there's light at the end of the tunnel with these lawsuits, and there could be a real good path here. It's just I don't have anything to update. So
Okay.
there's no financial gain here. There's no real update. When there is, that's when we're provided. And that last question too, I get that a few times, and when we looked at the various agreements that are out there, this is not dissimilar to any of them, and I'm still not quite sure what people think we're missing out on. There's certainly going to be secrets and trade secrets, proprietary information that no partner would ever want disclosed. But at the same time, we get how many payers are out there, how much access do we have, what's your Salesforce numbers, all the relevant updates. We had a closely related company we worked with for years who were kind of stuck because their partner was Pfizer. And their product did 50 million a year, but that's not material to Pfizer. That's a rounding error, and so they wouldn't let the company say any of that, just zero. And that was two large publicly traded companies. So you get that sort of approach. I think we get an adequate amount. Sure, I'm sure everybody would like a lot more. Like, what are your projections? We don't have projections because that's not something we control. That's something that Corium controls, and I think they think it's going to be a big product. It's just about executing to get there.
Okay. On the last one, we talked a little bit about big pharma interest, joint venture. In this one, we talked a lot about Corium, potential, hypothetical. Has there been? I know that's how we started the interview, because of the low valuation now. Interest from big pharma, maybe.
I wouldn't say big pharma, but far bigger than us.
Far bigger.
At this point, right? We're not talking about a Pfizer or Merck or anything like that. That doesn't really fit their model very well, our company. But when you think about our cash reserves, the revenue potential, and our product pipeline, obviously that does fit a lot of companies from, say, $1 billion to $10 billion. And maybe that's big pharma to most people, but to me, that's mid cap. So when we think about it, look, we got to focus on creating that acquisition value. And we've had, just the standard interest that we've continued to have since our last call, that folks want to know about our pipeline, want to know what's going on. It fits so many different opportunities. Think about Jazz, right, with their sleep disorder portfolio. Harmony is doing very well with their Wake sleep product that launched a while back. There is growing interest in the areas that we're in, and we'll have clinical data shortly on. So it's a nice time to be KemPharm.
Chris, any more in the question bag?
There's a couple of stock price questions. Your favorite, I'm sure.
Travis. I'm sure his favorite, absolute favorite.
So one is, does KMPH have a poison pill clause in place due to the low share price to protect long-term shareholders?
Poison pill, like the old Twitter thing, right?
Yeah,
everyone loves that now. Yeah.
I mean, that's standard when you go public, is to put a few things in there to prevent somebody from getting, acquiring the company at an arbitrarily low price. Stagger the boards. You put, different board members to be elected at different, different years. You implement, different series of protections you could undertake, but none of those are enacted, and there's no need for those at this point. Because nobody's trying to do a hostile takeover.
At this point.
Yeah. Well, if they did, the stock would skyrocket, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To acquire 10% of the company, I think we'd all be happy.
Yeah, right.
Maybe somebody should try to take us over. That'd be great.
Yeah,
Elon, we're here. Hey.
Okay, so another one, let's see. On your last call, you commented there was no reason at that time for the sell-off. Since then, we are down another 37%. What are you specifically doing to stop the short sell manipulation?
Well, short sell manipulation. I've looked at this. Our short positions have not changed relative over the last 6 months. So folks that shorted, it seems like it's a standard percentage of our outstanding stock. It's not something that is overly concerning and kind of fairly normal. Unfortunately, the XBI, the NASDAQ Biotech Index, all these indexes have dropped precipitously from last year's highs, 50% or more. But if you look specifically at small cap companies, they've been especially hit. So we've been lumped in with a lot of these folks. We're the one company with cash. Everybody expects somebody with a market cap of 50 million is going to have to raise money in the next 12 months, and there's not money to be had. Folks aren't doing investments at this time. So I can see where the pressure is, and now that we're on all these indices, and we get lumped in a lot of times with that. But at the end of the day, that's not a real excuse. That is the macro nature of where we are and within the stock price. All we can do is affect what we can, which is get investor interest, get analyst interest, build a pipeline, and execute. And, those last two, we've been definitely doing it. I think analysts and investors are becoming more and more interested, but, we'll have to execute on those as well to turn this around.
Okay. Great.
I guess related to Elon Musk, there's a question on StockTwits. Do you think it's important to have board members that own shares in the company? Elon Musk thinks it's important, and he seems to do pretty well. How many shares do our board members own? What are your thoughts on this, Travis? I have no clue what the answer is.
Well, I agree. I think it is important for board members to be shareholders, and that's something that we've always looked for in a board member. If somebody's willing to participate with the rest of the shareholders. Certainly, just think in general, not specifically to our board, because they are my boss and, tell me what to do. It is important for folks to recognize that sometimes the business and the shareholders have two different needs. And in order to function and think about long-term value, you can't worry about short-term stock price on occasion. And so that's something that, do you want them to be in control and have most of the share? No, probably not. You don't want them to dictate to everybody what's going to be done because they're already a large shareholder. At the same time, it has to be a meaningful representation of the company. And, if they do well, everybody should do well. It shouldn't be one or the other.
Are your board members paid?
Yes, they receive a stipend for their time. Yeah, no, it's a considerable amount of time. I always think about it. It's not just the time they spend, their expertise that might be unique. It's also the liability they incur, right? When you think about a board or a management team, like your neck is on the line, not just professionally, but legally. And we have a joke. I'm sure most CEOs don't want to say it, but I don't care. LaDwayne Clifton, our CFO, and I, we don't look good in orange. So we're only going to do
Ah,
what's well above board, what is not even close to the legal issues. And we're the ones that get in the biggest trouble, not the board, not shareholders, not anybody else at the company.
fair
Yeah,
point.
I like that. You've answered every question. I mean, as I would expect nothing less, Travis. National rollout coming up, regardless of what the market does, because a good undervalue is undervalued in any market, right? And I don't know what you can or can't speak on valuations. I've never been a CEO of a publicly traded company, but what are your thoughts on the upcoming national rollout? And as far as the valuations concerned at today's price?
Well, I mean, I can speak to the fact that it makes absolutely no effing sense, right? It's just what reality is our market cap is approaching our cash value. That makes absolutely zero sense. That means there's no value to our pipeline, to our partnership with Quorium, and that we're not going to receive basically another dollar from Astaris. That's where we're being valued at right now. It's just, it's just stupid.
And that's why I own in the IRA. Travis, I was telling Chris before this interview, like our last interview was in January, about 4 months ago. Between January and today, I knew nothing about KMPH. Last week, I had to reinvest in my IRA because it's tax time. So I was like, what's KMPH at? Holy crap. Why? Let me go to StockTwits. Holy shit, there's a bunch of chatter. All right, let's do another Travis interview. That's basically like my thought process, because what you just said, I feel the same way, but I guess people are losing patience. I don't know. What do you have to say to these people that are losing patience and thinking that they're being kept in the dark?
Well, I wish I could actually tell them what they want to hear, because honestly, I don't know, why they feel like they're being kept in the dark, because we pass along basically every single thing. We're going to have a new candidate to announce this quarter. We're going to have a call in the future with Perry. I mean, I'm giving you everything that's on my Post-it note right here that I need to do. And so,
Ernesto, maybe Ernesto's 1.7 billion is going to make them happier. Maybe,
yeah,
guys.
well, and make me a lot happier. It's really difficult when you talk about stock price, and I do understand, like, everything's been hit though. I have other investments in other biotech companies that just been obliterated for no good reason. I mean, there's a list, and I don't remember who publishes it, but there's a list out there of companies that are approaching a negative enterprise value that folks should take a look at, because even if the company doesn't execute at some point, that's got to be kind of turned around, right? That you really have to see that you have to be worth more than the cash you have in the bank. If you have anything left, you might have acquisition value for just your public shell and your cash. That's worth more than your cash. So, I think there's just a disconnect with the general market, and I can appreciate the frustration. It's just ridiculous in how everybody's being treated. But we're not alone in this. So.
No, you're not alone.
I wish I could blame myself.
I have another holding, AQST. Actually, there's some history there. I think there's some connection between. That's my other holding.
Yeah,
that's my other holding. Oh my gosh, I lost so much on options with them, but I don't have that in my IRA. All right, so I guess everybody assumes like the worst when the price is down, and then everybody gets like hyper overconfident when the price is up. And Travis, we'll keep having you on as often as you want to come. If you want, if you can, please, can I get an interview with Perry from Quorium? And then maybe through him, I could get a interview with Ernesto, and maybe I could broker a deal between Ernesto and KMPH for 1.7 billion valuation.
Hey, I'll give you my pay if you do that.
Oh, okay. It's on. It's on.
Yeah,
Chris,
that's publicly stated. There you go.
there. Okay. Oh man, StockTwits is gonna love me. Chris, any more questions up in the GAT locked
Sure,
and loaded?
there was a few that were not touched on,
Like
but
a good one. Give
I don't know.
Travis
I don't
one
know if
more
I
to
have
end on.
I don't know if I have a good one, but here, what is the status with the one of three of the biggest insurers getting on board with the Stars?
I know that the other one is in the works. You know, that's going to be up to the payer when that gets executed, but that's making good progress. I don't. Is it going to come this quarter? I don't think Corium could tell you if they wanted to. It's up to the payer how fast they get into contracts and sign everything.
Yeah, that's kind of what I assumed you would know.
Yeah.
I mean, not that
I-
you would.
Nobody's gonna care about this question, but IQVIA, I know they do sales rep. What I heard IQVIA involved with the selling, but then it's Corium. Do they like outsource to IQVIA or like how does that work?
They have a split between in-house folks that are full-time employees, and then in some of the areas or some areas where they don't have great representation, they've used a contract sales force with IQVIA.
Okay.
Now, I believe in many instances, and we've looked into this in the past, you can actually hire those people full time once you kind of prove themselves, right? So it's kind of a temp for hire approach.
Ah, okay. Okay.
They may or may also share their time with another company, so they may go call on other doctors if there's not a lot of physicians in certain areas. So I don't know what the specifics are there, but it's pretty common to have that sort of approach, especially when
Okay.
you're building, right? You want the right people, not just anybody, to sell your product.
That makes sense. That was my question. We work a lot with IQVIA on the CRO side, so I was just wondering what they're doing on the sales rep side. So that's good to hear.
So, one thing I've noticed from these questions is there's a general theme. They seem to think that you, Travis, you have massive control over everything.
He's got the power in his hand, Travis
Yeah.
Mickle.
Like you're He-Man or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here.
Well, I don't either. I really wish I did. I think I've
Sure.
had if I could make somebody do what I want them to do, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be talking on this.
Well,
I mean,
the fact that you haven't met Ernesto, all right, then like we haven't gotten to that point. So like what Travis tells us, I don't think he's hiding anything. I think he's pretty transparent about everything that's happening. And like he said, Corium, yeah, it makes sense, but they're not the only fit. There's tons of fits. And oh, by the way, back to how we started this interview from Dr. 01, your biggest critic turned into your biggest fan. You're in the driver's seat, right? I mean, you are. I guess that's where that comes from, Chris. Travis is in the driver's seat as having someone who created Vyvanse, invented Vyvanse, saw it out to commercial success, or at least passed it off to allow it to succeed commercially. You're doing it again. And there's other stuff in the pipeline. So I put my money where my mouth is. I keep buying. KMPH doesn't pay me anything. Maybe next interview we do it in person in Florida and we have some drinks.
there you go. Yeah, we'll do
Maybe
it
there we could get something. Or at the beach. All right. Let's do it.
There
Let's
you go.
do it. Thank you, Travis. I appreciate it. Chris, thank you. Jason, thanks for the setting it up, and Casey as well.
Yeah, thank you both for your time. I really appreciate these venues and the
Travis.
opportunity to speak.
We'll do it again. Thank you, Travis. Thank you, everyone, for watching, listening. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Catch you later. Bye-bye.